Hello guys, this is your inspirational nurse. How are you guys doing? Happy holidays to everybody who celebrates Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Everything is coming up so fast and I am so sorry for the delay in videos and content. This is definitely your inspirational nurse. I'm currently in the role of DON, and today's video is super special. It is how to transition from assistant director of nursing to your director of nursing. For those who are interested in management, this video is especially made for you, or those who are just interested or just want something to watch for entertainment. Just keep watching and we're going to get started on the video. So, how to transition from one management role to another. Now, this can be really challenging because, as you know, as nurses, some of us can be very territorial over our current roles, our relationship with employees. Going from bedside nursing to management and transitioning from one to another can be really, really hard. As nurses, mentally, we prepare. We know if we coming onto a shift, we are prepared to take on that assignment, on that responsibility, and we do not stop until our work is finished. Nurses are hard workers. So when transitioning, it can really be hard because sometimes we're very territorial over maybe certain residents, because moving up from one title to another can change your setting maybe, or the level of care that you're given at the time, or your responsibilities. So your first great tip would be you have to transition mentally. So just transitioning to the role and being promoted physically is just one thing. But the challenge is mentally. Are you mentally transitioned in your mind? And part of that is letting go. We have to let go our formal position and respect the company to find a candidate that meets the qualifications and needs of the company in that role. We cannot judge whom they soon to bring in, or whatever idea candidate that they have that they think will be a great fit for the team. Anything with management has a lot to do with the team. The team is everything. When you bring in like 5 to 6 different teammates on management that is really strong, you're going to have a building that is going to run very well, like a well-oiled machine. Is going to run whether management is in the building or not, because they trust that management team has the best interest of the staff. And that's what it's all about. I know for me, I love management, and before I did not. I never wanted a formal position. I was kind of like that informal leader that all the new grads especially would come and ask me for help, and we have, I'll help them, and I'll give all my tips and tricks when I was a travel nurse, off and on, and just certain things that I learned, and share with other nurses. And I always was that leader or that responsible person, even in my family, y'all. It's just always been that responsible one, and it was tough because sometimes I didn't always want to be the leader. I didn't always want to be the responsible one, but God chose me to be this one. So finally, after, I guess, getting all my bedside feelings out of the way, I was ready to transition. But transition is really hard. And the way you know if you're doing a great job with transitioning from ADON to DON is by your performance. If you're noticing that like you're performing and you're still as if you're in your formal role as an ADON and not the director of nursing, and you're like, why am I working like if I'm just the ADON and I'm not the director of nursing? Something is wrong, meaning that you're mentally not transitioning all 100% as of yet. And in order for that transition to happen really well, as you need the support from your company. Your company need to be supporting you, rooting you on, and giving you reassurance, especially if you're staying in the same setting, that they have your best interest, that they really support you. Some companies really do support their management team. I haven't seen a whole lot of them. They just kind of expect you to jump in and just, take over and good luck. And, there's not a lot of support. But transitioning from one role to another can be really, really hard on the individual, because in that individual's mind, they still have that responsibilities of the ADON and now the director of nursing. Now they're carrying two titles on their shoulders. What another great tip that will help is transitioning right after you're finishing the degree or completing a certification. Now, if you're just finishing up in school and you're so pumped up, you know how you come out of school, you're finishing your degree that you've been working on for months and months and months or years, and now you finally complete that degree and you have those skill sets and you want to use them. That is also a great time to transition, because you just finished learning all these great things and now you're ready to put into action. So I think that's a great time to transition, is when you're finishing school. You're motivated, you have the information in your mind, you know how to do it. Like when I was getting my BSN, we learned everything. Like we learned how to budget, how to run like a unit, how to staff it, like how to manage a unit. If we had to come up with our own unit, like a med surg unit, and we had to run it and staff it with like a receptionist. And it was like, then we did a lot of Excel stuff and just a whole lot of stuff that currently right now is really helpful in my role, because currently the company uses a lot of Excel spreadsheets and reports and statistics, and we took statistics for our BSN. So it's really helpful when you are getting your master's or bachelor's to jump into that title, if that's your desires. If it's not your desires and you really don't want to move up, then you might need to go somewhere that really makes you happy. If you're going to be in an ADON role, that means one day you're going to be the director of nursing. Do you see yourself as a director of nursing? Ask yourself that. What kind of director of nursing you think you might be? What setting you want to work in, because not everybody wants to work in long-term care. As the director of nursing, maybe you are a manager in the hospital setting that runs a unit. Or maybe you are the type of person, if you're the type of person that just like to focus on one particular unit, like a skill unit, and manage that unit and make sure all the orders in and all the stuff is sent to pharmacy and all that stuff. Maybe you will be a great unit manager. So you really in management need to know what you want to do and what that might look like. And the first way to knowing that is knowing what you don't want to do. Like that's the easiest way to figure out which role fits you if you're interested in management. You need to really sit down and go, like, I don't want to do that, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. ADON usually moves up to DON or works as the DON when the DON is out the building. When I was ADON, it happened like as soon as I started, the DON was out for like a couple of days. She was like, oh, this girl coming in. I'm going to take some breaks. I'm going to go lay down, and I'm like, okay. So sometimes what helps to transition is to make sure that outside of the job, you have support, like someone you can talk to say, hey, I'm having a hard time seeing myself as like, even getting married. Like I have a hard time seeing myself as a wife. Like, my husband, like my boyfriend wants to marry me, and I had a hard time doing that. Like transitioning is not an easy task. It's scary because you don't know, how that's going to look. Like, are you going to be capable of doing the job, and in order to know is to get into the role and to start developing and actually put yourself out there so you can kind of see from day-to-day operation, like, no, this is not for me. This is not what I want to do. This is not the setting that I want to be in management in. And that's what is most important, is to follow what your heart is saying. Like, if that's not what you want to do, is to be honest. Don't be in a role. I see people get put in management roles that don't want to be in management, period. They're just like those nurses that just really good at their jobs. Like, you can put some nurses anywhere and they can do any job, but deep down, they don't desire to be in that role. They like, this is not for me. I don't even want to be in management. Like, I was that nurse. Like, in the hospital, my team was like, yay, charge nurse, yay, this. And I'm like, no. Like, first of all, not saying I couldn't do it. It's just that the fact of I have 8 patients myself, being in charge, trying to figure out the schedule when all my teammates, all my nurses, patients was crashing themselves. I have to stop what I'm doing, answer the phone, the charge nurse phone, and do all these meetings and stuff. It was so impossible. Like, it was not realistic. And I don't like to do any role or anything that I'm not fully trained in. I like to be trained. I like to know, feel like I have a foundation to stand on in order to be the leader. And I feel like a leader needs to make sure they have at least some experience. Like, some people just get thrown in roles that don't, like, to the company. It makes sense because, like, again, some nurses just can perform, but their desires they don't want it. So the attitude towards the job sucks. And they like, why is her attitude? And she's not so motivated. I'd rather work with a nurse that really wants to be in a certain role, but maybe just never had the chance to develop, or been properly trained or something like that, because they really have the intent to move up, which means they're going to gain more education. They're going to want to seek advice. They're going to want to perform better. They're going to want to, excel because they have the desires. Sometimes I think we judge, or we know that, like, if it's a person that's already in the company that wants the position, that wants to transition to the DON, we got to make sure that we support people transitioning. Even if I know nurses that transition from CNAs to RN, and they really got like no respect from the staff. The staff was like, you're always going to be a CNA. Like, you're not a nurse. Like, on the same unit that they've been on for like years. I have seen it happen to somebody that I knew, and it was like hard. It was like, why y'all treating her like that when she went back to school? She got her education. She did everything she wanted to, and she loves her unit. And, they're like, no, because her status changed, So sometimes the transition, sometimes it's easier to go to a new setting, a new job, and just start fresh with a new set of employees, people that don't know you. It's like a new chapter in your book. You need to definitely have support. You have to learn to let go your formal position. Some people think they did that and they really didn't let go of that job, as far as like in their minds, because somebody who took over their old job, and their mind is like, oh, I don't do it that way. Why is she doing it that way? And why is she sitting there? That was my desk. Like, you didn't really transition yet mentally. You're still working as if you're the ADON. Part of being in management is having the ability to delegate, to hold people accountable, to be an example. And you still have to develop, as being a leader. You have to develop, and transitioning is not easy because things changes. So maybe the role didn't have some things that you didn't have to do before. Now you got to do, like the company added more responsibilities to the role, and now you're like, but so-and-so didn't have to do all that. Now I got to do all that. I don't want. So it's so challenging. But for those who do want to transition from assistant director of nursing to director of nursing, you really do deep down need to know, like, how to slowly transition from one job to another. Having an orientation and going through the processes and what your day might look like. I'll always ask that question when I'm being interviewed, is like, what would my day look like? That is so important when you're interviewing to be promoted to another position. And if that day sounds like hell to you, and you like, that is not the type of day I want to have, then that might not be the role for you. That is so important to ask. Like, I remember asking that, like, because I had to transition from being a med-surg nurse to now in the step-down ICU world. It was two different worlds. I can tell you so much difference. In med-surg world, I had not a lot of time, but sometimes I had time to like chat with a coworker. I had students on the floor. A lot of times we had a lot of patients in med-surg. Like, you come across so many different people. You do everything. Like, your skill set is broad because you're a med-surg. You do everything. You're doing dialysis, you're doing labs. I worked all the specialized med-surg units, so I didn't just have one particular one. So going from working all the general floors, specialized floors, to working one particular area was really hard transitioning, because I'm so used to moving around and being busy, like getting calls from the ED, getting patients from the emergency room and getting my room ready and my whiteboard and all this stuff. Step down ICU world was like, I stepped on a unit and don't even take my coat off and my patient was already coding. Like, literally, that's how my day was. I go use the bathroom, come out, my patient was coding. That was my new world. Titrating medications. Every couple of minutes, I was titrating something. The rhythms was changing, all critical. Everybody was all critical. So I went from people not being somewhat critical to everybody being critical. So time management had to change. My, the routine that I had in my formal position, which is hard to have a routine as a nurse, but y'all know what I mean. But to transition to step to ICU was really, really hard. From working from a med-surg floor, all the specialized med-surg floors. I felt like, I was collaborating more on the med-surg side of it, like with case managers and my providers and my NP and so many other departments. With step down ICU and ICU was more isolated. These patients are like on their last leg, and you're trying to fight for them not to go to the ICU, and get on that vent again. You're trying to transition them from step down ICU back to med-surg and get them better so they can go to med-surg to be discharged, or be discharged from your unit. Like, it was a whole different type of ball game. More challenging. You have to use your muscle memory. Your drum lasts more often than usual. Like, on the med-surg side of it, we had an IV team that came and did all, like, some, not all, but like some labs. We had a lot of benefits on that side of it, but step down ICU, you have your respiratory therapist, your doctor, and they do rounds a little bit differently in ICU as well. Where it's just a small huddle, and you're discussing, the statuses of each patient. And on the med-surg side of it, you're just dealing with more people. So if you're a social person, then med-surg is definitely for you. But going towards the ICU side of it, it's really more, you have no time to do nothing in between. Like, literally, your H&H's are critical. Your patient is bleeding, and now you have to run blood, and now you're titrating this several different medications because this patient is all over the place. And then, they're going back from BiPAP to CPAP to BiPAP. Some people can't tolerate it. They're ripping it off their face. And, there's not a lot of thousands of respiratory therapists. So you have to stay on top of your toes with your ABGs. And, it just was a whole different ball game. And transitioning, definitely, it takes time to develop and get comfortable again with the setting. You just have to get comfortable to the new sounds. Like, on step down, anything ICU related, it's different types of sounds because these patients are very sick. So something is always beeping. It's very stimulating to type of unit and very isolated. So, coming in new, you have the anxiety of being a new person, even though you're not new to the system, the hospital system, you're new to ICU. So it's hard to be that new kid on the block again when you was a new kid on the block before and you mastered your skills and now you're starting over again. So it was like, if y'all get what I'm saying, it's not easy to transition all the time. You literally have to give yourself time. That is the best advice I can give you when you're transitioning any type of work. You have to give yourself time to gain the confidence, to gain the experience, to develop, to learn, to gain and build relationships with your coworkers and your other teams that's helping the patients out. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about the patient. So you don't want to be in a role that, you can't get to that point. You have to make sure you evaluate your performance and say, hey, I'm noticing that I'm not transitioning well. I need help. Like, I need somebody to guide me and to this new role. Like, I need somebody to guide and be positive, give me some reassurance that I am performing where I need to be, or maybe I need to make some changes to how I do different things, or what is the expectations, because that is everything. Expectations is everything when someone is transitioning from one role to another. Some companies skip that part. They don't say what is the new expectations to a worker that they probably knew as the ADON that's just transitioned to deal when they're like, oh, she got it. No, what is the new expectations for that person? You have to make sure that you are very clear on how, you got to pay attention to that nurse transitioning and making sure that she's growing, developing into the new role. It is not an easy thing. Nurses already go through so much. Just taking care of other people is already draining, and then to try to transition into the new role. And not everybody knows. Like me, I was like an amazing med-surg nurse, and finally it took a while, but I finally mastered what I needed to master and everything, and I was feeling really confident working the floors. I was able to pick up a lot of extra hours, working 6 days straight. Like, it was really becoming easy. Every single day got better. But transition again it means that now my new team that I have don't know the abilities and the skill set that I have prior to coming to this floor. And I always say that med-surg may not be the desirable job that people want, but it definitely gives you the skill sets and the foundation at least. So when you are transitioning from one unit to another, you know the basics. You know how to do a lot of things. Now you're just specializing. When you're going to a specialized unit, you're just specializing in one particular area. But if you're the type of nurse that just like to dib and dab in different things and like different disease processes, and you're not so focused on one thing, and you like a challenge of getting different people and different caseloads, then med-surg might be a thing for you. And some people always say, no, not me. But really, it's not a bad job. You just do a whole lot of stuff. Some people call it busy work, but you do a lot. And you do a lot of things that other specialty nurses don't do or don't know how to do. Like, I had a labor delivery nurses come to me and was like, we need help with this because we're not real nurses. And I'm like, you are real nurses. You just focus on babies. Like, that's, and moms and having babies. Like, that's your thing. Like, if I would have come in your unit, I wouldn't know how to do that, But to them, it was so like, yeah, but we consider you guys real nurses because you do everything, which is true. But that doesn't mean that we're the real nurses. It just means that we generally just works with every disease process. So hopefully this video was super helpful. It was on my heart this morning to talk about transitioning, because God is definitely transitioning people. This is a season of people being transitioned to different roles, different titles. Going from ADON to DON in management is not easy, because it's just more responsibility. And you are accountable for a lot more. So it's just not an easy transition. So hopefully this video was helpful. You guys keep watching, keep hitting that subscribe button, like button, share. I am your girl, Tiara, coming to you live with another great video.